Well, right now, Islamist enclaves are quietly taking root in America. They're buying up land, building parallel societies, and using our own freedoms as a cover. So, how far has this already gone? Here to shed some light on the rising concern is Nathan Pinkoski. When we look at this today at NatCon, part of your speech is going to be creating Islamist communities in Christian America. So give people a sense of what's actually happening in America right now.
Yeah, so first of all, I think we need to understand that the strategy that's being used here is one that's already been used in Europe. There's a playbook. It's been going on for decades. It's actually a fairly clearly written playbook, so we know what to expect. We know how it works. You go from a strategy of developing cultural separatism, of cutting yourself off from the rest of the community around you, the broader cultural majority. And then you use that not just to disappear like the Amish or to have your own little enclave where you stay aside. You use it to try to launch a takeover of the territory that you're in. Think of it as a strategy of civilizational conquest, to develop an alternative civilization and to expand and keep growing. So France has the lost territories of the Republic. Britain speaks about Muslim communities developing parallel lives, a parallel polis, if you will. And that's the Islamist strategy. So what do we see right now in our country? Well, we see a rising population brought about especially by the open borders that we've had in the past few years. We see our growth trajectory in the past 15 years has actually been greater than the British trajectory in the past 15 years. So our curve is steeper. Yes, we have a smaller population, but another detail that we should bear in mind is it's wealthier. And that makes a big difference. That makes a big difference if you're, as you just said, like buying up land and thinking about having these strategies of taking control of neighborhoods, moving forward from that. So we should be vigilant. We should be looking to where these develop. We do have some legal tools that help spot this, that help us see what's going on. And put up some barriers. One of the things that is actually useful in this sense is that when these communities are launching, they proceed with a lot of they're intentionally seeking out people of the same ethnicity and the same race. Often, your Somali Muslims are not the same as those from, say, Yemen or Lebanon. So we can use some tools that are available. There's a great deal of legal tools. Fair Housing Act, for instance, can spot some of this. So I think what we should bear in mind here is it is happening. There is a playbook that we can see the parallels. And the broader strategy that to be looking out for here is this separatism with a view to long-term cultural takeover.
I was just in the Middle East and witnessing the way in which these are tribal cultures still. Birds of a feather flock together, as they'll tell you there in English. And the extent to which that's true is just something I don't think Americans really, fully can grasp. And even people in Europe, same way. But we have the example of Europe, and that's sitting before us. And I think a lot of people in our audience, already know that this is a problem in Europe. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the response so far? I mean, have we responded any differently than Europe already? Or are we just making the same mistake without people realizing it? What do you think about the difference in response?
Well, this is the problem, I think. Just to see how many we've been bringing in the past few years. And yes, people will say, "Oh, it's only a small percent, 1%, 2% of the population." Our growth curve is larger, and just the sheer number. If you think about it, we have almost 4 million now in the country of Muslims. And of course, I'm not saying that all Muslims are Islamists, but the problem here is that Islamists use that particular society. And here's, I think, to get to the heart of your question, use the particular Muslim communities as a venue, as a launch to spread their ideology. And this is the thing we don't understand. We think often that every group that comes in wants to share in the broader nation-state community. And that's not what's going on here. What happens is the groups that come in tend to preserve a lot of their tribal connections. That's the primary relationship. The primary relationship that mediates interactions is not we're citizens. It's we're members of the same tribe. So when I see you, we haven't met in a while. In fact, since a couple of years, yeah. I see you and I think of you perhaps as a friend, perhaps as a fellow citizen. But the tribal relationship doesn't come into things. I don't know anything about your ethnicity. In fact, So that's not part of our thinking. But we do have these other groups that view themselves in those terms, and that was makes them so vulnerable to Islamist capture. So we have to, I think, really bear in mind that there is this whole other category, this whole other way of relating that we've lost sight of in the West because, again, we tend to think about our immediate family, our friends, and then we jump to the nation-state relationship, the citizenship relationship. But in most human societies, for most of human history, there's a whole different category that's in between the tribal category, the ethnic category. And for a lot of these groups coming in, that's the priority. And we've just pretended that doesn't exist or put it aside or said, well, it's just incidental. It's part of the rich tapestry of our diverse community without understanding that that's a real, that brings about real ethical obligations, real moral obligations that cause some difficulties.
So, I mean, basically you're saying we're doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing.
Exactly.
We're just we're walking down the same path and into the same trap.
Yeah, often with looser border controls and a looser immigration policy, and one that's not thought through. Europeans are actually pretty strict in a lot of places.
When you look at Muslims in Western countries versus the Muslims that live, in the Middle East, in the Islamic countries, is there a difference that you see? Do they have different goals, or is this like they go from one? Because we know that the immigration, they don't go to other Islamic countries. Now they're coming into the West.
Yeah. So this is exactly it. Decades ago, we thought that, and this is, I think, the European mistake. They thought if we just have a small working community that comes in, maybe they bring their family members, but the temptations of Western prosperity will bring about them to abandon their old way of life, and that hasn't happened. And then we have another problem that's compounded that too. We had decades ago, people would talk about globalization would ensure the integration, and people's desire for more economic wealth and prosperity would make sure they left this sort of fundamentalist religious baggage behind. But globalization and technological advances work against us here, because when you move now thousands of miles away from where you came from, with the powers of modern communication technology, you can be instantly related to your community back home. And that means the ties that 100 years ago, when you had Italians who left the mother country to come to the United States, it became difficult over weeks, months, years to maintain that old relation with the old community. That's not what happens here. You can keep that relationship going, and that's exactly the kind of modern communication channel that Islamists use. So we don't see a process of assimilation. We don't see a process of integration. We see the preservation of the same motherland that was there outside from another country here. And that's what's been going on for years. The evidence is there, but a lot of us are still attached to that old vision. Prosperity will make this all wash away.
So what do we do about this? I mean, if you're advising the Trump administration, what do you tell them?
Look, I think we have some domestic tools that we can be more vigilant about using. I think we have to be very, very mindful of the creation of ethnic enclaves and look for where that's happening. I think the second thing is we have to look at foreign funding and where this is coming in to help launch these communities. I did mention earlier that the communities tend to be wealthier, so that can be a little trickier to stop private funds going back and forth. But foreign funding is a whole different game, right? And the Europeans, to their credit, in recent years have gotten much better about this, looking at where foreign funds are coming in and trying to stop them for the creation of Islamic centers and so forth. Another tool, though, that we really have to look at ourselves carefully about is our immigration policy. This is really at the heart of it. This is the only way that we can make any real concrete advancements. We have to look at our policies that are far, far too generous, that don't consider cultural factors for when we're assessing valuable immigrants. And as a result, are opening ourselves to just continuing and promulgating this as we go down into the future. And that's the hard question for a lot of Americans, because we like to think everyone can come here and over time, everyone can come to be American. We have to let that view go.